Okay, I think it's back. Can you guys check? I'm sure it's a different link though. Okay, it's back and the can anybody see the live stream now? Hello?
Yes, yes.
You can see it back. Are you using the same link or a different
Yes,
link?
sir. It's the same link. It works.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so basically, what was I going to? Okay, I talked about the auto boxing, right? So I said for auto boxing is how you are able to access methods inside of a string, and other primitive data types. So let's just go on and explore some string methods. I know I showed you some during the last time, but let's go deep into it now. So string methods. So let's just declare a variable, and that variable is going to be a string. So let's say let my string, and let me just use the convention I'm using. I prefer this convention for naming variables. So let's say we have so I can do a couple of other things with this particular data. So I can say my string dot to uppercase, which you saw last week. So this transforms every character. What is that? Console.log, not console. And I really want this idea, so you can see we have all caps, right? And then in spite of the fact that we have, okay, let me do lowercase all through. Then I'll use the uppercase method as well to change. So my lower string. So here let's say let my upper string, and let me say hello world. And here I remember I changed the name, so that's why we have that error. So when I restore the name, so you can see it changed the lowercase one to uppercase. So for the uppercase one, let's say console.log my upper string, and I say this one dot to lowercase, and this converts all the characters to lowercase. So you can see that here we have all caps, but using this method we are able to convert it back to lowercase, and here we have lower caps. Using this method we are able to convert it back to uppercase. So you can see these are more like higher order operations we are performing as against the basic adding strings together, converting strings to numbers so that we can perform arithmetic operations and so on. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so those are the couple of things that you can do with these few methods. So but before we go on, because of this auto boxing is why we can actually use these methods, because the normal regular JavaScript string is a primitive type and it does not have any method to it. So how do we explore all the methods that are available? How do we see the prototype that auto boxing makes available on our string methods? Does that make sense? How do we see them? Hello? Does anybody understand the question I just asked? Hello?
No, sir.
You don't understand the question I asked? Okay, I said primitive data types. And what are primitive data types? The data types that only hold a single value and you can't alter that value, right? It's either you create a new value from them, or you destroy them by just terminating a program that they are a part of, or terminating them where you declared them, right? And what I meant was that but you cannot alter them.
Yes, sir.
For instance, when we have something like my string, my upper string, I cannot say my upper string dot to lowercase, for instance. If I don't do this here, nothing is going to happen. In as much as that something should happen, you can see that it doesn't get converted to lowercase. You understand? It just remains the way it is because you cannot alter a primitive data type. Does that make sense? The only way I can do this is to, do something like this. And more like it's more like I'm actually reassigning a new value, and you can see it gets changed to lowercase. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear? Hello?
So it's not very clear, but I'm sure when I watch the video,
Okay.
it's
So let me just go over it again to be sure. So we declared a string here. And let me just remove one of them basically. So to lowercase. Okay, let me remove the one that says to lowercase. And let me remove this as well. So we know that a string, because this particular character, if I do type of my lower string, you can actually see that the type is a string. And whenever we console.log my lower string, unlike when we console an object, we saw an arrow beside it that we can toggle down to be able to see the methods available on the prototype, right? But here on the string, we don't actually see that because this is a primitive data type. It does not have a prototype because it is a primitive data type. Think about the primitive man. You know the primitive man? The primitive man is more like the most ancestral man, the most backward man. So it's more like he's just a basic man. He's not intelligent. He's not so intelligent rather. He's just bare. Do you understand what I'm talking about? So when I say primitive data type, it's basically that data type is just bare. It's not complex. It is just simple. It holds only a single value. It does not have a prototype. What makes you roll with the big boys as a data type in JavaScript is that you have a prototype. You get, if you don't have a prototype, you are just there like you don't have anything. You get the point. We can't do so much with you. But I said, and you can see I said it, and I said, okay, whenever you see somebody do anything like my string, for instance, my lower string dot, the moment you see dot and somebody writes something like maybe to lowercase or to uppercase, this dot actually means that you are implying that what you are writing after the dot is a property of what is on the left hand side of the dot. Does that make sense? Because that's the dot notation, right? We use the dot to access the properties of a particular value. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, we use the dot to access the value. But you can see here that this string type is primitive. It has no extra value other than the one you've given to it, which is hello world. It has no prototype. So if we say to lowercase, where is the to lowercase coming from? It is coming from the auto boxing of primitive types. And what the auto boxing of primitive type does for you is that it wraps your primitive types inside another kind of object. And that object is the one that now has the prototype. Does that make sense? So for the string, there's a different kind of object, and that object is this capital string object. So this, and you can see that it's actually green, letting you know that, okay, it says it allows manipulation and formatting of text strings and determination and location of substrings within the string. Does that make sense? So it is this is the object, and you can see if I do a console.log this string now, or the type of this string. If I console.log the type of this capital string, you can see that's not a variable, rather it's a keyword in JavaScript. Console.log the string, you will see we have a function. So this function basically is what executes to an object, and it creates a wrapper for every string you create in JavaScript, and that is why you can access some additional properties on string types, just like to uppercase, to lowercase, substring, which we will see some of them later on. So Another thing you can do, instead of declaring a string just like this, and I'm going to cut this out. Another thing you can do is use the new keyword, which is another keyword in JavaScript. Can say new string, and then you create your string. What is that? You create your string using this string keyword, and you will see that by the time we say, first of all, let's console.log our my lower string, and you can see that we have something now. We have a string, object that kind of logs this out, and this is just a regular string, but it's now letting you know that it is showing the original state of every string that you do not see when JavaScript wraps this string constructor around them. So if I bring this down, you will see something strange, and don't worry too much about this, but you see that it now has its own prototype, and you see all of those methods we're using, like to lowercase to uppercase, inside of this prototype. So can you see to lowercase and to uppercase? Let me just make this bigger. Can you see that now? So by default, JavaScript kind of does this for you in the background using this auto boxing feature. It wraps your string that you created just normally without this new string keyword. It wraps it inside of that string constructor, and it makes those methods available to that string that you created. Does that make sense now? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir.
See, as your yeses are low. So, so that string keyword is what makes methods available. And we don't just have string keywords. We also have the number keyword, which is this. We have this number keyword as well, but we'll not be looking at that now. So basically, let's revert back to that, that stuff we created using the string constructor. And let's see some of the methods available in the prototype, and let's see how we can apply that. So we have character art, and then what this does is, and let me just kind of create another console.log. Yeah. So you can see here, what I'm doing is that I'm saying my string.characterArt, which is what is available. It's actually available inside of this prototype. Character art, which means what this does for you is it returns the character as a specified index, and this is 0 index. So when I say character and at 2, it does 0 1, sorry, it does 0 1 2, so it returns L for us. So if I say character at 0, it will return H. Does that make sense? So this is another method. So we have another method, which is Substring, which I showed you yesterday. So Substring basically returns a particular part of a string based on the start index and end index. So I can decide that, okay, I have a long string, okay, hello world, but I want to return only world. And you most likely would want to use this. Maybe let's say you have a sentence that says maybe hello user, or hello let's say hello so basically I know that this is 0 index, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and the space is at 5. So I want to return from, I just want to return my name. I want to ignore hello world. So what I can do is I can put 5 here, and it returns my name. But I can also specify where I want that substring to end. So I can say from 5 to 7. So it takes only just, it goes from, from 5, and it's kind of just returns, this is 5, this is 6, this is 7. So what it does is it just returns the one at the 7th index. So I can say at 9, for instance, and you can see what it does. It returns, it starts from 5. It returns, this, sorry, what's that? So it returns from 5, it returns 1, 2, and 3, then it stops. Does that make sense? Hello?
No, sir.
So basically, you understand what the substring is doing. It's trying to get a part of the string for you, right? So these numbers you are passing in is basically the index of the characters in the string. And whenever we talk about index in JavaScript, with index it starts with 0. So the first character is at the 0 index. Does that make sense? So if we are
Yes, sir.
using a 0 index based, counting, so that means H is 0, then E is 1, L is 3, the second L is 4. Sorry, no, I said 3. How do I jump from 1 to
3.
3? So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The space is 5. So the space is the fifth character. Do you get? So now if I say, okay, start counting from after 5. So it will count 6, 7, 8. Do you get the point?
Yes,
Hello.
sir.
So that's what is actually happening here. So it's basically just,
But
and it works in a very.
But it's okay. It stops at before you entered 8, and 8 stops at the last. The
Okay,
second.
see what it does. Let me read the
unlock.
feedways here. 0 based index number indicating the end of a substring. The substring includes character up to, but not including the character indicated by the end. Does that make sense? It does not add the character
Yes,
on the last index. So it will just get what is in between the start index and the end index. Does that make sense? So yeah, the start index is 5, which is this space, and the let's say the 9th index, which is what we already knew, is this L. So it will return 6, 7, 8. It will not return 9. So that is what this method does for you. Does that make sense? So think about you having to write this function from the scratch to be able to create this kind of functionality for your string. That's a lot of work. So that's why you have some inherent methods already built on the prototype of your object, so that you can, or on your data type rather, so that you can always just use those as to fast track the works you are doing. Those methods are already available. Does that make sense? So here you can decide the last index is optional, so you can decide not to add it. So it just takes from the start index and takes every other thing after that. So you can see now that I have my name spelled out. If I should add any other thing after my name, it's still going to include it. Does that make sense? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes,
here's
sir.
another method available. So we have the length method available, which kind of just counts the characters here. So when you have a very long string of text, you can decide to just get, and this length is not a method, it's just a property, and you can see it is not in the prototype, it is outside of the prototype. You get, but it's a part of the static property you get. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the length is not available on all data types, so it is impossible for me to do something like a boolean and say false.length. That doesn't make any sense. You get, false does not have, what are you counting in the length of false? It's just either true or false, right? So it's not more like it's a string. So we have string.let. So there are many methods. So once you just inspect like this, you can actually see the methods available, and all of these are actually valid. You can use them to do a lot of things. Does that make sense? You can repeat, and another interesting one I want to show you is just string.split. And what it does is it converts your string to an array. Does that make sense? So you can see it converted it to an array. But what I can do is I can decide where I want to split it. So I want to split this string where there is a space. So I will just put a quotation sign and I press space. So it is going to split it at the point where there is space. So you can see that I have an array of 2 objects, and I use the string to get that array. But I use the split method to actually achieve that. Does that make sense? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
But are you getting what I mean by methods? You don't have to learn all these methods or know them immediately. Do you understand? Like I told you, you go to W3 schools, or I give you some other resources like MDM, so that you can learn about these various methods on different data types. I'm just trying to let you know what methods are and how they can make your lives easier. So we have a lot of them, and if you look at it, you can actually you can tell how many we have, like a lot of them. And don't be overwhelmed. You probably will never create a string in JavaScript using this new string keyword. What you'll be doing most of the time is just this. but I'm doing the new string keyword so that I can show you the prototype of the string, auto box wrapper. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's why I just did that. So I've never created a string in my code using that new string keyword, and I'm sure a lot of developers will also agree to the same, that it's more like an overkill. But it's more like when you are curious, you want to see what's available for you to be able to use, then you can check there. But you probably will not even need to check there for you to see what's available for you to use on a string. When you go to MDN also, you can actually see a list of a lot of string. Okay, like I was going to open one for you. So we see string.length, we've already explored that. So you can see string.slice. So that's another one. I'm not sure if I want to talk. Okay, let's just deal with that. So you don't even have to know what some of them do, but as you use them. So this one actually, removes element from an array if necessary. Okay, this talking about. Let's see what it does. And okay, that's not actually available on the string method because I know slice is basically on arrays. Okay. Okay, that's fine. So we have substring. Yes. Okay, there's one other one I would like to show you. So remember with this substring, this one. So other than substring, we also have substring, but I think that's deprecated. It's no longer valid in JavaScript. So you can actually use that, and this one actually, it includes, you can decide the index you want to start from, and then specify the number of elements you want to add. So more like 3 elements. So you can see that we have and it doesn't still include the ending index, as you can see. So we can say okay, and it's different from substring, but you can see that it's deprecated. It's no longer useful. Deprecated means it's no longer advisable to use this. Do you understand? Since it works similarly with substring, so let's just kind of get rid of that. But we used to use this before, and what it does is it's instead of start
But to use it, is there implication? Sorry.
No, it will still work.
It doesn't change anything now.
It will work, but if you are working in certain environments, you might probably be getting a warning and that asks you to take it down. So you can see that substring gives you start and end index, but this one gives you from index and then the length of things you want to add. Does that make sense? So that's basically just like the difference. So I think so just go over the various string methods we have here, and not just here, we have on MDN as well, a lot of them. So okay, and then one other problem with W3 schools is that most of their documentation is actually very old, and is not up to date as it should be. So it's not advisable. So the most updated kind of documentation you get on anything is basically from MDN, not from W3 schools. Though I like W3 schools because it just gives you straight up examples, but MDN is a more accurate, Mozilla Developer Network is what it's called. So MDN string methods. So yeah, you get most of the things that are up to date, not just a bunch of old artifacts that you might not even need anymore. So you can see the new string object that I used now. So it's the string primitives and string object can be used interchangeably in situations like I said before, but you probably will just be using the string primitives. So you can see character art, we already used that, and then just a bunch of other things. So kind of just take a look at this, you will see all of the things available for you to be able to use. And then as you check it, if you have any question, also let me know. Do you understand that? So let me put this link on the group so that you can explore the various things that you can, that are available that you can use. So JavaScript string methods. So for MDN, so I already added, I put it on a group. So kind of just, and I won't send it yet. So by the time I do, so let's go over to what's it called, number. So let me just put a dummy to uppercase here. And then for numbers, okay. So basically, let's just say we have a number like and then that's number 2. So we can do console.log, my number, and then we have that. So it's important to also know that we have the number object constructor as well that you can, you create a number out of, and then you can see a prototype of the various things you want to, that you'd like to add inside of your number. And then there are different kinds of numbers in the world of programming. So we have what's it called, integers, and then we have floating point numbers. So floating point numbers are basically decimal numbers. Does that make sense? So you don't always have to use this, but just for us to see what's available. And you can see we don't have a lot, just like we had for the string and so on. But yeah, we have value to string, so we can basically convert a number to string. So we can do so let me just kind of do create another line, and then let's perform our operations on that new line. So let's say to string. So basically we can convert that number to string. So so you can see it's actually converted this to string for us. And the way you know it's actually a string is that if we decide to just maybe write a different number, and this one thing you will see in your console. I don't know if anybody has noticed that already, but you realize that number types basically, every type that you put in the console has a color designated to it, right? Have you noticed that in your browser? So you can see the number actually has this more like purple color, but the string has more like a whitish grayish color. So here you can actually see that this has been converted to string, and let's see what happens when we put type of. So you can see the type of is actually string, but initially what we declared was a number. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have the toString. So let's say we have a number like 0. Blah 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 999. So we have this. So there's another method that we can actually use to determine how many decimal places we want. So we can say to fixed. So we can say to fixed 2. So it keeps it in gives let me not do, what am I doing? No longer type of. Why is it now converted to? Okay, but you can see now that it kind of truncates the number of decimal places, right? So I can do to fix 4 to 4 decimal places. So you can see what's happening there. Hello?
Yes, sir.
And you can see it approximates it. It converts the 8 to 9. If the number, you know the rule for approximation, if it's over 5, then it goes on to approximate. But if it is not, it doesn't approximate. Oh. So you can see what's happening. So when I go below 4, yeah, it won't approximate it anymore. Does that make sense? So that's another method. So let's still check here and see what we can. To precision. And I think precision is also pertaining to what's it called? Returns a string containing a number represented either by exponential, fixed, blah blah blah. So let's see what happens there. So you can see what's happening here. It's actually like more like 3 significant figures, 1 significant figure, and so on. Does that make sense? So you can see when we do 1 significant figure, it does only 1. So that's the difference between to precision and to fixed. Are you guys saying that? So you don't actually have to know all of this from top of your head now. So that's that about number method. So you can see how we're actually performing different kinds of operations on this particular data types. So Hold on while I'm trying to get something here. If you have a question, please, this is the good time to ask. Hello. Hello. Is there any question so far? Hello. Hello.
No, sir.
Okay, so let's do it.
Sir, no, sir.
So the Boolean value can also be auto boxed. So we can have let status equal new, and then want to put false. So let's just do console.log status, and let's see the prototype and what's available. I've never really explored this before. So we can convert Boolean to string value, as you can see. So we can say dot to string. So you can see there's not a lot you can actually do with this. So you can see it converts it to string for us. So we can say, can you see what's happening? So basically, so you don't have to use the new keyword every time, like I said. You can always do this, and yet you can still access the properties. Does that make sense? So yeah, we've been able to convert a Boolean to string, and that's because of the method available by auto boxing, the value. So let's go to the interesting one. I love array methods because you'll be using array methods every time. Okay. But remember that for you to be able to see what you have available inside of each one of them, you have to use a new keyword and kind of just use the constructor to kind of create those values, and then you'll be able to see all of things available for you inside of it. So we have array const my array, and that will be equal to 1, 3, 8, hello world, false, and maybe even an object, but that's fine. Let's keep it simple. So if we do console.log, we don't need to use any new for this, but you can actually still do that. But let's just do my array, because for this is a non-primitive data type, so you should be able to see the prototype just by console.logging it. So when we do this, you should see prototype. And you can see that we have a lot of things inside of here. See, it's a lot. Like, this is a rich list of methods. You get the point? So the first one I want us to explore is array.join. And what this does is it's going to convert your array to a string. Does that make sense? Then here you can also specify the the delimiter. That is what you want to use to separate your array by the time you join them together. So let's use a space to separate them. So we are going to see 1, 2, 3. So let's say inside of our array, what we had here before was mine, and then we have name. Sorry, let me just use small letter so that we can make sense out of it. Name is. So when I do array.join, it kind of joins it together. So whatever I put here will be how it joins them together. So I can use plus, and you see plus in between. I can use equal to, and you see equal to joining them together. So the parameter you put, what you put inside of the method, that is the argument you put inside of it, is going to be the separator of your array when you join it. Does that make sense? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. So there are actually a lot of methods here, and I know I showed you some. So let's take a look at maybe another nice one that we can. And I don't want to. There's higher order array methods, like for each map and so on, that we won't be talking about now. Yeah, we can find something like array dot dot index of, and that's also a string method. So index of I want to say index of name, that is what is the index of name. You can see that name is, this is 0 index, this is the first index, so name is at the index of 1, so it returns 1. So if I say the index of Ololade is going to return, guess what, 3, which is the last index, 3. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So this way I can actually find something inside of my array using the index. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can find something inside of my array using that index. So if I decide to find something that is not in the index, it's going to return -1. You get? You know this is not equal to this, right? This has capital letter, this is all small. So these two values are not equal. So it returns -1. So it can't find it. So whenever, index of can't find anything, returns -1. Does that make sense? So it says returns the, and put your mouse
Again,
on.
say what?
Yeah?
Index of.
Eh?
I didn't hear you. Like, did you say whenever index of cannot find the
Yeah, what you are looking for
Is that
in an
what it is?
array or a string is going to return
use
-1.
minus?
Yeah. So most times when you are writing maybe complex programs, you will do things like if my array got index of what you're looking for, maybe like is less than, if it is less than 0, you get, then that's what you want to check for. So when you do less than 0 means it is -1 or below, right? But it will always be -1. That means, because 0 means it will be at a 0 index, right? So if it is less than -1 0, that means it is -1, -2 and below, right? So you kind of want to test, you usually test for this kind of condition when you are writing complex programs. Like you want to check, okay, if something exists in an array, then if it exists, say, okay, maybe like console.log, maybe user found or user exists, that kind of thing. Does that make sense? So you can see here that it is not less than -1, but if I say greater than 0 rather, then you see it will say user found, right? You see it executes that command. So let's not run ahead of ourselves. I'm just trying to show you the applicability of some of these things. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So far, is there any question? Okay, I think given like how intense this has been tonight, I know many of you are actually overwhelmed already. So I think we are going to stop here. So what I want you to do for me is, yeah.
So at the beginning of the class, you said you just wanted to we are going into something, like the way you just made it sound like, okay, it's just something small. So this is huge.
It's actually small, and these are array methods. But what you might not be getting is that you might be thinking you have to know all of the things I just did now. You don't have to know all of them now, and that's leading to the assignment.
But sir, you do.
Huh?
You know it. So there's no way we have to do it too.
I know it over some years of experience, and writing code daily. Like it's hard for a day to go by and I don't write code. So you understand. So I didn't know them by trying to memorize them. It's by the reason of use, and that's why I always tell you, watch the replays, code along, and do as much as you can. You get. That's how you really learn them. You get. And then read a lot, because there are things you won't get from tutorials. The highest we get from a tutorial is that they will tell you, somebody will just use the method, but they will not even tell you why they use it sometimes. You won't even know where the methods are coming from. If you're on the call and you've been doing tutorials, you can relate, right? Somebody will just say, okay, array.map, and you will just be like, where is the map coming from? Is it map of Nigeria? That kind of thing. But the person is actually doing that from a perspective of what you already know, that they are not telling you, not because they don't want to tell you. Of course, they are working out to ensure that the knowledge goes around. But they cannot be, if you are doing a practical tutorial, they can't be explaining all of these things in a practical tutorial. It doesn't just work. You understand? So that's the thing. So don't be overwhelmed. I'll give you an assignment together with the ones I've given you before. Find like just do a research on the most used array and string methods, basically, because most of the methods you'll be using will be revolving around arrays and strings. Then you can see that the number methods are not that many, the Boolean methods not that many. Then we have objects too. So, and I've not talked about that yet. So just kind of look at all these things. So it will kind of help you have, a sound knowledge when we start proceeding, because we'll be writing some short scripts, going forward. But I can give you an assignment. Okay, we have 10 elements in an array. I want you to, bring 3 of them out and join them together and do this. You'll be doing some things with some data types, which will be revolving around the array method. So I want you to kind of just go over them and learn them. So let me just bring up array. And don't bother yourself too much. There are some things such as higher order array methods, and you don't want to start looking at those here, because you can see that most of the methods we've been looking at actually taking primitive data types as their parameter, right? They take in like maybe number. If you want to say to string, is either you don't put in any argument, or maybe when you put an argument you put a number or another string, like index of, you put a, are you getting what I'm saying? Like when we did index of, I said dot index of. So what I passed into it, and you see it here that it is a string it is taking. But for higher order array methods, for instance, they don't take strings, they don't take numbers. What they take is another function. So you will see things like this, and then you now have to write another function inside of it. Like, so don't go into all of those yet. Just look for the basic array methods yet, and array basic string methods. So we have the array methods here. Let me just kind of copy it, and please give this a very good read. It's a weekend in front of you, so try to make the most of it. So I'm putting this as well. Array methods. I'm putting it in the chat, so I want you to follow it. Okay, so that's it, guys. I think we should stop here tonight. Like I promised you, I don't want to always take this over the 1 hour mark. Now, as much as we lost some recording, but it's fine. God will help us. So that's okay, guys. So let's see what we can do over the weekend. Follow through with the assignments and do all the try and watch all of the replays if you haven't seen any of them. If you haven't seen some of them yet, it's going to help you a lot. You can see that things will become overwhelming when you have gap in terms of okay, where we are coming from and where you are joining us. So try as much as possible, please, to make it easy for for all of us, including yourself. So does that make sense? Thank you, guys. If there are no questions, I think this is the point where I tell you good night. So so the intercessory 30 minutes session. So I think Yetunde should lead us. And Triumph, you do praise and worship. 45 minutes.
Jesus, like, come on, Jesus.
Okay, guys.
I completely forgot. God.
Okay, I'll stop sharing now. Let me end the stream as well.